Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And this is Billboard Breakdown. Now, I was expecting the Billboard Hot 100 to be pretty busy this week. I mean, coming off of the Grammys, it always is. You get the performances that remind people that certain songs actually exist and they start rising again or even return to the charts. Big award shows, they're like that. And even though most of the critical public treats them with professional disinterest, well, at least until one of our favorites wins, like with St. Vincent this year, but the public puts a lot of stock in them regardless, and guess who the radio listens to? That was the plan. And then a certain Canadian rapper decided to drop an album from out of nowhere, and suddenly, and I hate that I'm saying this, but the radio turned into the Drake show. Let me stress this was US radio though, where you guys got 5 new Drake tracks charting, and not even the best ones at that. Guess how many we Canadians got? That's right, 1. Proving once again the universal truth that the Canadian charts are always better. But putting aside that for now, let's talk about our top 10, which also happened to be pretty damn busy, except as last week, not for the top 3. Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars holds onto the number 1 slot by a thread, mostly by streaming in an ever-shrinking airplay gap. But Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran was damn close this week, having stronger airplay gains, better sales, and was only a fraction behind in streaming. The surprise is that Take Me to Church by Hozier managed to remain at number 3. Sales and airplay fell off significantly, really only buoyed by significant streaming there. It must have somehow been enough though, because 4 or 5 Seconds by Rihanna, Kanye West, and Paul McCartney shot up to number 4, with great airplay gains and sales, just not picking it up in streaming to get higher just yet. It's enough to knock Maroon 5's Sugar down to number 5, which had the streams and the airplay, but not quite enough strong of a sales week. Another really close race there. But then we've got our second major contender with Ellie Goulding's Love Me Like You Do, a song that continued to ride out the 50 Shades of Grey hype train. We'll get to that a bit later, don't worry. And used YouTube and good sales to compensate for slightly softer airplay and streams to rise up to number 6. All this was enough to knock Taylor Swift's Blank Space back down to number 7. And really, I'm surprised it didn't fall harder given its weak sales and dipping airplay. Might just not have been enough to unseat it just yet. It's still got some airplay dominance. Below that, we've got Sam Smith's I'm Not the Only One at number 8, which is barely holding on in sales and doing surprisingly well in streaming to compensate for free-falling airplay. And Lips Are Moving by Meghan Trainor dropping to number 9, which looks to have peaked in airplay and lost a fair amount of streams and sales across the board. Rounding it out at number 10, and I told you this was coming, is our new arrival Style by Taylor Swift. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised it's not higher, but the sales weren't stellar, airplay takes time to build up, and even though the video debut and streaming helped, probably with one of her best videos yet, the reception there has been a little lukewarm, even though, as I said, it's one of her best videos. One thing's for sure, it's gonna be a fight for the top spot next week. No serious blockages in the top 10 this year, which is a good thing. And now we've got our dropouts and our losers. The former, a group of songs that I can't exactly complain much about here. I mean, I'm not complaining that God Made Girls, the flawless remix with Nicki Minaj, Iggy Azalea's Beg For It, or Fergie's LA Love are gone from the Hot 100. I didn't like any of those songs. The one loss that does kind of disappoint me a bit is Waves by Mr. Probs. It's one of the unfortunate songs that gets caught between years on the charts and probably wouldn't have lodged enough points to land on a year-end list, which kind of sucks because you know what? It was a great laid-back sleeper hit that I really did like. As for our losers, we got a mixed bag of songs that are on the way out. Talladega by Eric Church going to 68, The Hanging Tree by Jennifer Lawrence dropping to 73, and a few songs that just didn't catch on enough in the same way. Not For Long by B.O.B. and Trey Songz dropping back to 90, and Heartbeat Song by Kelly Clarkson fading to 44. Both seems like cases of lost momentum. And Sledgehammer by Fifth Harmony seems to be in free fall, going to 72 now that the album's out and the hype is fading real fast. The one song that surprised me a bit in this slowdown is The Heart What's What It Wants by Selena Gomez dropping to 34. But then again, it kind of makes sense because even though it's not a bad song by any stretch and easily Selena's best in a long time, it's not exactly a song that I really care about or think about, so I'm not exactly surprised that it's starting to fade away. What does surprise me are some of the gains that we've got this week. Not all of them, mind you. Talking Body by Tove Lo up to 70 and Chains by Nick Jonas to 56. They're both songs gaining more traction. They're good songs too. Only One by Kanye and Paul McCartney rising to 45 and Chandelier shooting back up to 20. That's thanks to the Grammys. And Sam Smith's Lay Me Down rising to 58 is because of a video that's designed to get a huge audience on the more progressive side of YouTube, and Sam Smith getting, again, tons of Grammys. But can somebody please explain to me why Somebody by Natalie LaRose and Jeremiah went up to number 37? Okay, sure, it finally got a video, but the most that is interesting about that song are the parts borrowed wholesale from Whitney Houston. That's it. At least I can kind of see Trap Queen by Fetty Wap getting a little bit popular. The production's decent, it's a kind of a fun track, and hell, Hood Dudes need a Valentine's Day song too. I'll give them that. I'll take it over Earned It by The Weeknd, which continues to ride out the 50 Shades of Grey hype vehicle, and I might as well deal with this now. Look, I was considering doing a special comment on the video and the difference between art and pornography in framing, but from the sounds of it, the movie just played everything so tastefully with the lead actor roughly equivalent to a sentient block of wood, and really just turned out more boring and mediocre than outright offensive crap. Apparently, it made enough money though, so we're apparently gonna get sequels that have some of the more screwed up stuff where it might happen, but they'll probably throw that out too. Look folks, I can't muster up the energy to care about this anymore. You want good BDSM stories? Look up the graphic novel Sunstone that's recently came out, or the 2002 movie Secretary with James Spader and Maggie Gyllenhaal. Fantastic movie. It's a lot better than 50 Shades of Grey, for God's sakes. And now that I've supplied you all with kinky reading / watching material, let's get back to our returning entries and our new arrivals. Starting with... Already talked about Imagine Dragons, the album that they just dropped Smoke and Mirrors a few days ago, and this song only a week or so earlier. I'd still only describe it as a pretty damn good song, and not a great one or one of Imagine Dragons' best, but it's easily one of the best from the album, and I'll repeat what I said when I gave it the top slot a couple weeks ago. The charts are better with more songs that sound like U2. Just wish the album had gone more in that direction. Kinda sorry that it didn't.
She wants to dance like ooh with Thurman, bury me till I confess.
So okay, the returning songs are determined to make up for all the Drake here, because you're giving me one of the most fun songs that Fall Out Boy ever wrote, have already praised extensively. It's one of my favorite songs thus far this year, and frankly needs a video ASAP. Seriously, Fall Out Boy, I know you're intending to make this as the next single, but you need to strike when the iron's hot and make a damn good video for this one. Don't bother with the Wiz Khalifa remix. He does nothing for this track. You can forget about him, because I want to see the song clean house on the charts. It's that good. It's got that great of a hook. It's amazing. Well, that was surprisingly quick. Now on to the busy part of our week, the news song, starting with number 100, What Kind of Man by Florence The Machine. I've talked a bit about in the past how there's some indie acts that should have gotten huge and just for some reason never got the momentum that they deserved, and one of the bands near the top of that list is Florence and the Machine. Dog Days Are Over, Shake It Out, these songs weren't even the best from their respective albums, and they should have been so much bigger than they really were. Hell, they even got bumps from Glee back when that was popular, and they just didn't stick to radio whatsoever. But now they're back with a third try with the lead-off single from their upcoming third album dropping in early June, which yes, I will review. So what do we get here? Well, for one, it's definitely a nice touch to see a prominent guitar lick driving the track. I like that. And definitely dug Florence's very potent belting that fits the frustrated fury at the indecisive dude on the song. It's not showing the emotive subtlety that I wish she'd eventually develop and bring to the table, but you know what? Broad strokes do work for her. She's got the voice to do it. If I were to nitpick on the song, it'd be that the overall flow and groove of the song takes a while to really materialize. Don't get me wrong, the melodies push to the forefront, that chunky riff, the horns, that's all good, but maybe a thicker bass line could have given this song some real galloping power that doesn't quite have. As it is a good track, but it is a step below Shake It Out in terms of lead-off singles, at least for me. Still good though. Number 99, Keep Your Money by the Empire Cast featuring Jussie Smollett. Okay, I might have mentioned in previous videos that my February has been insanely busy, and part of that means is that I haven't just gotten around to watching Empire yet, which seems like the sort of the overtop music industry soap opera that I'd absolutely love. Trust me, it's on my list to watch, but until then, this is my first introduction to the actual music on the show, and It's okay. The production does show the shortcomings that coming off of a TV series. Not as much texture as you would expect. Those hi-hats were obviously created by a computer, and that synth line is not very good. But the harmonies were pretty damn solid. I did like the forceful sample driving the track forward on the chorus. Really, I've heard a lot worse in modern R&B, and really the reason this track sounds as good as it does is courtesy of Timbaland, who they actually called in to handle all the music on the show. And while it's nowhere near his best, he's got limited time to refine these beats, and it's still turning in sticky and memorable songs, as this is. This might be the first time I'm seeing Empire songs on the Hot 100, but if they're as good as this, and I suspect the show is getting major traction, it won't be the last time I see songs from this show. Number 97, I Put a Spell on You by Annie Lennox.
I put a spell on you because you're mine.
So remember when I said that the Grammys allow songs to chart? Prime example here. Annie Lennox performed with Hozier, one of the best showings of the night. It was enough to get her lead-off single from her 2014 album to chart. And really, if we're looking for an 80s icon to get a major comeback, I'll take Annie Lennox over Madonna any day. No disrespect to the former queen of pop, but Annie Lennox has aged a lot more gracefully. And her soulful dark cover, The Blues Standards, I Put a Spell on You, originally by Screamin' Jay Hawkins, is goddamn excellent. The organ, twinkling pianos, and the swells of strings gives that razor-edged guitar line, and Annie Lennox's witch-like voice gives the song a gothic class. It's almost reminiscent of the fine line that, say, Nick Cave walks with songs like Red Right Hand. In other words, this track is awesome, and in a better world probably wouldn't be gone after just 1 week, which I originally thought until I discovered it was the lead-off song from the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack. And from a quick look at that track list, it's easily the best song there. Frankly, I'm still baffled that it landed here. It might fit the tone, but it seems like that soundtrack director didn't get the email that it was a male dominant and overload the track with witch-like tracks and thinking it was a femdom thing. Whatever, I'll take what I can get. Number 96, Honey, I'm Good by Andy Grammer.
Probably should not. I got somebody at home, and if I stay, I might not leave alone. No, honey, I'm good. I could have another, but I probably should not. I gotta bid you adieu to another. I will stay true. I will stay true.
Okay, you can tell a lot about an artist by what he describes as his main influences. And when singer-songwriter Andy Grammer said that he was most inspired by guitar guys like Jack Johnson, John Mayer, and Jason Mraz, piano guys like Coldplay, The Fray, and One Republic, and hip-hop acts like Common and Kanye, I just have the feeling this guy made the whitest music possible. He originally lodged a minor hit off his 2011 self-titled album with Keep Your Head Up, which wasn't a bad song in terms of technical songwriting and that organ that came in, but it sure as hell wore its influences on its sleeve, nothing all that spectacular. And that's definitely true about his follow-up single, the follow-up lead-off single from his 2014 album, Honey, I'm Good. But not to any of the acts I previously mentioned. Nope, this is a lot more closer to Maroon 5, especially in the falsetto vocals. But you know what, I'm being honest, Honey, I'm Good is a hell of a lot better than anything Maroon 5 has released recently. The organ makes a really welcome return, that hand clap percussion gives the track a lot of momentum, supported by the quick-paced writing. It almost reminds me more of a bluegrass or old-school country stomp than Kanye, and that's definitely supported in the lyrics. We're all about a guy to decide to ditch a friend who's clearly trying to seduce him for his girl back home. And yeah, it's corny as all hell, but Grammer is owning it, and he's got enough charisma and intellect to not put on airs and be something that he's not. Yeah, okay, it's still kind of a dorky song, and it's still white as all hell, but honestly, when the song is this much fun, who cares? It's kind of awesome. Number 95, Where You Belong by The Weeknd.
Where you belong, 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 where you belong.
So it appears I'm still not done talking about 50 Shades of Grey because they hired The Weeknd to do a second song for this soundtrack. And you know what? It's better. The thicker, fuzzier beat, the waves of hi-hats, the oily production, that greasy guitar that comes in the back half, lyrics that actually have a BDSM feel to them. They have none of the pretensions to chamber pop that made Earned It so goddamn insufferable for me. If I'm gonna find a weakness here, it honestly would be with The Weeknd. And look, I can tell he's trying, but his voice is too thin and reedy to be convincing here. You get Annie Lennox singing a song like this, I'd buy it hook, line, and sinker. But I'm sorry, I'm not quite convinced here. Still, the production and the lyrics do the trick, so I'll take it. Number 91, Used To by Drake featuring Lil Wayne.
Floating all through the city with the windows down, putting on like I used to. They never told me when you get the crown, it's gonna take some getting used to. New friends all in their old feelings now. They don't love you like they used to, man.
And now we start with the wave of Drake songs, and let's begin with the absolute worst of them. It should be noted this song isn't technically Drake's. It was originally on Lil Wayne's Sorry for the Wait 2 mixtape, and as such shows the same lack of quality, except Drake apparently had the good sense to keep a riff-raff off his version of the song. Regardless, it's still not anything close to good. Sure, it might be about getting used to being at the top and dealing with those taking shots at him, but his double rhymes and elongated syllable nonsense kills any enjoyment that I might get from this track, and his punchlines really are nothing all that special. Lil Wayne's verse isn't anything good either. The sheer number of flubbed rhymes, inconsistent topics, and still bright and getting screwed up on Purple Drank shows us he's learned nothing over the past 3 years. I'm not saying that it's a terrible track, trust me, I've heard a lot worse from both Drake and Lil Wayne, but it's pretty damn far from good, especially from two rappers who are supposed to be at the top. Number 88, 10 Bands by Drake.
100 bands, fuck it, man. Let's just not even discuss it, man. OMG. Nigga sleep, I ain't trippin', I'ma let him sleep. I ain't trippin', let him rest in peace. I can tell you how it happened. I can tell you about them safe house nights out in Calabasas.
You know, I didn't really talk about this song when I reviewed the album, and honestly, I'm kind of ambivalent on it. There's a couple solid lines, and the percussion does have some punch to it, but I'm always left wondering what kind of mood this song is trying to cultivate. For as much as Drake's bragging, he spends most of the song isolated in his own house with all the windows unplugged, all the shutters closed up, and not knowing how much he's making off of his deals. It's the same issue I had with that line from Start From the Bottom. I wear every single chain even when I'm in the house. Oh, okay, why would you want to show off when nobody's around to see it? Are you that insecure? And here he just seems to be actively isolating himself in a house of his own ego. You know what, I make the Citizen Kane comparison, but nothing on this song gives me evidence that Drake has a deeper secret or obsession or anything interesting, which means the song lacks a lot of weight and purpose for me. It's not technically a bad song from a compositional standpoint, but he had a lot better on that album, I'm sorry. Number 86, Legend by Drake.
I'm too good with these words, watch a nigga backtrack. If I die, all I know is I'm a motherfucking legend. It's too late for my city, I'm the youngest nigga reppin'.
And see, okay, here again, instead of getting one of the better songs from the album, we get the album opener. Well, I like the Genuine sample, but that's about it. And that muffled squeak that sounds like down-tuned bed strings in the background really gets distracting. Quite simply, Drake hasn't really impressed me that he'd be a legend in rap music beyond some local fame here in Toronto. And this song doesn't do much beyond that. His rapping tempo is pretty slow and languid, none of his bars are all that impressive, and if he barely sounds like he cares about his success, why should I care? Not a terrible song, but outside of a mostly memorable and sticky hook, I'm sorry, don't care for it. Next, number 85, Preach by Drake featuring PARTYNEXTDOOR.
Preach, 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 young nigga preach, 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 preach.
You know what, believe it or not, I actually kind of like this song. And believe me, that surprises me more than anyone. The obvious thing that might alienate me on the surface is PARTYNEXTDOOR, given the obvious future comparison. And I'd be lying if I said that his forced rhymes don't annoy me. And let's be honest, Drake doesn't stop a stellar verse here either. But what saves this song for me is the instrumentation. Not the majority of it throughout the song, but that change up in the last 30 seconds. It suddenly shifts into this plucky synth and harp sample that's got this brittle, stuttered bass, and it's surprisingly elegant. Not stellar, but considering this is trying to be more of a party jam, you know what? It's got the energy to work pretty well. I can kind of dig it. Number 80, One Last Time by Ariana Grande. So it was inevitable that Ariana Grande would try to find another single to follow Love Me Harder, and it was inevitable that it would unfortunately suffer in comparison. It also wouldn't help matters that single's writing was handled by David Guetta, who has a reputation for some of the blandest music in the industry for years now. But to be fair, One Last Time, it's solid enough. The obvious comparison is to Stay the Night by Zedd featuring Hayley Williams, but I like One Last Time a little bit more. Mostly because it lets Ariana Grande stick more in her more restrained, lower range to balance out against the muted keys and the steady gallop of the production. Nothing great, but the song is well framed in setting up Ariana as the one desperate for forgiveness, and you know what? It works pretty well. I'll take it. Number 76, A Little Red Wagon by Miranda, Lambert.
The front seat's broken and the axle's dragging. You can't step to this backyard swagger. You know it ain't my fault when I'm walking, dogs drop the like a ooh.
Oh, I I knew as soon as I heard this at the Grammys that it'd jump on the charts, and while I could say that there are better songs from Platinum that deserve chart success, I can think of a few of them. Little Red Wagon has its own collection of issues, especially in the production. For one, it's a song that's clearly biting from Kesha's Gold Trans Am. It isn't nearly as heavy as it thinks it is, thanks to more of an acoustic focus and that odd squealing guitar tone and that terrible synth tone that's smeared all over the track, none of which is enough to balance against the drums and the cymbals, which, like usual, is way too high for Miranda Lambert. I do like the song was trying to go for more of a ragged, plucky focus, especially considering that Miranda Lambert managed to snag the only real bleep at the Grammys and a performance, which is kind of sad in a certain way. But really, it's a lot messier than it's got any right to be and just lacks a lot of impact for me, especially considering this sort of trashiness isn't a great look for Miranda Lambert, at least not in this form. It might work if the song has a little bit more fire, but as it is, this Little Red Wagon, it's sputtering out. And finally, number 49, Energy by Drake.
People trying to drain me of my energy, they trying to take away from a nigga. Fucking with the kid and pray for your nigga. I got girls in real life trying to fuck up my day. Fuck going online, that ain't part of my day. I got real shit popping with my family too. I got niggas that can never leave Canada too.
Well, I'll say this, the Drake song that debuted highest on the charts, it's probably the best of them. Not the best from the album, the radio wasn't about to play 6 p.m. in New York or You in the Six. As it is, Energy, it's fine. Drake still rhymes words with themselves and that elongated syllable nonsense isn't going away, but his ratio of better lines is higher, he brings more energy, and the eerie, warped piano line gives the song something of an imposing vibe. I'm not gonna say it's anything that gets me all that hyped or excited or anything that's beyond a great track, but you know what? It's fine enough. I guess it works. And that's our new arrivals. And putting aside all the Drake, it's actually a pretty damn great week for the charts, both in new arrivals and in returning entries. For the worst, Drake unfortunately snags the worst with Used To and the dishonorable mention with Legend. As for the best, see, it's tough this week because Andy Grammer, Annie Lennox, and Fall Out Boy all put up a pretty damn solid fight for the best songs. But considering I've already given Best of the Week to Fall Out Boy before and will likely praise the song plenty later in other videos, I'm giving Best of the Week to Andy Grammer for Honey I'm Good for just being a ridiculously fun, bouncy pop song that I really liked, with honorable mention slipping to Annie Lennox for her cover of I Put a Spell on You. And yeah, part of it might have to do with the fact that everything that 50 Shades of Grey taints, but you know what, it's still highly recommended. So let's see how much staying power Drake will have next week. My bet, not that much. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.